You want them apples drunk, okay? You want them apples drunk and stumbling over as they make their way into that batter. You hear me? I've made this cake for most of my friends and they've all loved them. Some Benita Mansana, also known as Drunken Apple Maple Bourbon Bundt Cake. You are gonna wanna make this cake, trust me. Let's just go ahead and get right up into the recipe. Starting with your apples. This time I used 2 gala apples, peeled, cored, and chopped. Add some lemon juice to prevent them from browning, and get them into your skillet with some oil and butter. Add some brown sugar and maple syrup and let them cook down. They gonna start to soak up them flavors and that's what you want. I then add some nutmeg, which I feel is underrated, unfortunately, okay, but I love me some nutmeg. Add you some nutmeg and some cinnamon. The apples are gonna begin to get nice and tender as they cook. And now it's time to get them apples nice and drunk, okay? Nice and intoxicated, and we're gonna do that with none other than Mr. Jack Daniels himself. The alcohol is gonna be toned down because you're cooking it, and those apples are gonna soak it up. That's what we want, okay? We want them intoxicated. Once they're all drunk and tender, I prep my bundt pan and I butter her up nicely. Add a little flour to it, and then I refrigerate it, which, believe it or not, really helps when taking that cake out of the pan. She just slides out more easy, you know what I'm saying? Now it's time to cream your butter and your sugar along with some vanilla. Now it's time to add 3 room temperature eggs, 1 at a time. Add 1 and whisk it in, and then add your next, and then your next. I add some more cinnamon to this mixture because I really can't get enough cinnamon, okay? You add cinnamon to your liking, but I love the warmth and the flavor that cinnamon brings. Next, I get some freeze-dried apples. Again, I learned this technique from That Girl Can Cook. Check out her YouTube channel. You probably already have because the girl is always cooking and the girl is always doing her thing. These freeze-dried apples are gonna give us more of that apple flavor. I add them to my bullet to break them down, and then I add them to my dry ingredients. I then begin adding my dry mixture, 1/3 of it at a time, along with 1/3 of my milk at a time. I then incorporate it by mixing it in, and then I add my second, and then I add my 3rd part of my dry ingredients and my milk. Once I'm done with that, I add a little bit more cinnamon, believe it or not. You don't believe it, but yeah, I do. I also added some allspice, okay? You know, it's not fall, but it's still just, you know, comforting and warm, and who doesn't love that when eating cake? From there, you want to add in your drunken apples to your batter. Just go ahead and fold those in nicely. You then add your batter to your bundt pan, and you get Benita Mansana into the oven that's preheated at 350 degrees, and you leave her in there for about 40 minutes. While Benita Mansana bakes, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna make that glaze using butter, maple syrup, and some powdered sugar. Mix it all together, and you know, while I was mixing my glaze, it was really clumpy, and I'm like, what? And then it hit me. I forgot somebody. I forgot to add Jack. Yeah, we're gonna add Jack Daniels up into this glaze, okay? Because not only are the apples gonna be drunk, but you're gonna be drunk too. Add some Jack into that glaze and mix her up until she's nice and smooth. Once Benita Mansana is out the oven, I like to poke some holes in there right away while it's still hot, and then I like to pour some of that glaze over those holes so that the bottom of the cake can soak up some of that glaze, okay? Don't go crazy, but you do want to coat that bottom, and it's just going to soak that glaze, that Jack Daniels maple glaze right on up. And you know, I just had to make that face because After Benita Mansana sits for a little bit, take her out of that pan, hopefully she comes out clean, and let her cool. I let her cool for about 2 hours because I want my glaze to remain a little on the thicker side, so Benita Mansana has to be fully cooled, okay? While she's cooling, I went ahead and I chopped up some pecans, and then I toasted them in some butter and sugar. Once Benita Mansana is cool, I added my glaze, and then I added my pecans, and she was ready to go. You want to try Benita Mansana, aka this Drunken Apple Maple Bourbon Bundt cake. You will not regret it, and you're gonna wanna make it for your friends, and they're gonna want you to make it again and again. Trust me, it's an easy recipe, and more importantly, it is delicious. If you've learned something from this video, be sure to click like, and don't forget to subscribe.